Predictions for week 3. First of all, I'm 0-1 at the moment because the Giants defense finally looked like the Giants defense. They got a good pass rush. They were in Cam's face. So they finally stepped up to do what they did. It seems like this team performs better when they're injured. It kind of makes you wonder. But yeah, on to the next games. Right now we've got the Bucs at the Cowboys, and you know, up until last week, this looked like, you know, even back in May, this looked like a definite win for the Cowboys. And honestly, though, there are some concerns at the moment, but I think I'm giving the advantage to the Cowboys only because they are at home. You know, and the Bucs, they had that huge meltdown in the second half. And I think Seattle, what really happened there is that they played a physical game and the Cowboys just couldn't match their intensity. Those guys were out there, they were hitting. The Bucs have a decent team. They've got a lot of good players on their roster, but I think that for this contest, I'll go with the Cowboys only because I think the Cowboys are playing with a sense of urgency. The Bucs have a much younger roster. They've got a lot of players on there who've got 10 more years in the league. Whereas the Cowboys, I think you're probably going to see them play with a greater sense of urgency. And then you've got the Jaguars at the Colts, where the Jaguars are 0-2. And the Jags, they lost to the Vikings in week 1, and then the Vikings lost to the Colts in week 2. So that makes it hard to believe that the Jaguars will not lose to the Colts in this contest. Andrew Luck's been playing pretty well, and he has some veteran talent around him. And I think that I saw a report where that said Dwight Freeney might be returning this week, and that can only help. You know, when you get, you know, having the Tasmanian Devil on your team can only make your defense better. And then you have the Bills at the Browns, which, I'm going to be completely honest with you. The Browns have been playing pretty well this season. The Bills, they've had up and down seasons so far, but as I've said before, I don't bet on the Browns. Now, I would not be shocked if the Browns pulled the upset. You know, they've actually been playing pretty well. They got 4 turnovers against the Eagles. They got 6 sacks last week. And I think, honestly, if Joe Hayden was still in the lineup, I might have to go for the Browns. But right now, the Bills, you know, they played pretty well last week, and so far through 2 games, you know, two separate weeks, C.J. Spiller has averaged 10 yards a carry. You know, it's hard to go against that. You know, so I'm gonna have to pick the Bills. Then you have the Jets at the Dolphins, 2 teams that seem constantly in opposite directions. Week 1, the Dolphins floundered while the Jets soared. Week 2, the Jets got grounded while the Dolphins performed swimmingly. Reggie Bush did a fantastic job last week, and if he can repeat that performance, then I might give the edge to the Dolphins. However, you know, I say don't overlook the Jets' defense. They still have a lot of strong playmakers on that side of the ball. And as inconsistent as they have been, you know, they did score 48 in that opening week. That may have been a fluke, you know, and it's not going to happen 2 weeks in a row, but that doesn't mean it can't happen every other week. But I think, you know, in Dolphin Stadium, if Reggie Bush can repeat that performance, it's probably going to be the Dolphins. And then you've got the Chiefs at the Saints. 2-0. These teams are both 0-2, and I think honestly the Saints, they've been playing horrible football all year on the defensive side of the ball. You know, but Drew Brees has been, you know, the same Drew Brees, and if they could do a better job establishing themselves in the first half on offense, they might be 2-0. You know, a few plays here and there just completely changes their season. And honestly, between these 2 teams, I have to choose the Saints. I mean, Drew Brees is one of the best QBs in the league. I can't really go against him. And then you have the Bengals at the Redskins, which honestly, this could potentially turn into a game of the week. Both of these teams have actually been playing pretty well. RG3 has been sensational so far. Let's not underestimate the Bengals offense either, though. And I think the difference here is defense. And, you know, the Bengals have a good defense. The Redskins actually have a better defense. But they have suffered some injuries which could set them back just enough that I think the Bengals will take advantage of it and should be able to come away with the win here. And then you have the Rams at the Bears. If the Bears can play with the swagger that they had in the season opener, they could easily run away with this, especially since Steven Jackson is dealing with some injury issues right now. But at the same time, let's give credit to the Rams. They have been playing pretty well. They almost beat the Lions in their season opener. They beat the Redskins last week. But, you know, it's just the Bears, they played lights out in week 1. And even though they lost last week, it was to a tremendous Packers pass rush. And, you know, Forte right now, there is that whole injury situation. But they still have Bush. They've still got Brandon Marshall and a lot of other receivers over there. I have to go with the Bears on this one. Because as great as the Rams have been playing, the Bears, they also have a defense too that they can rely on, even if their offense isn't giving them the same production. And then you have 49ers at Vikings, which honestly, do I even have to say it? I'm going to say it's got to be the 49ers. They've been playing tremendous football against great teams, playoff-bound teams. And honestly, the only reason I would actually watch this game is because I would love to see that battle, Patrick Willis versus Adrian Peterson. They came into the league the same year, two of the most physical guys you could have. When these two guys playing at their peak, it's fun to watch them go at each other. But I don't think the Vikings are going to be anywhere near as strong as the 49ers. And then last on the 1 o'clock schedule, you have the Lions at the Titans. And Chris Johnson has had 2 miserable performances to open the season, and until he gets back to form, the Titans don't stand a chance at winning any games. Not to mention Jake Locker dealing with the injuries. But the Lions, they struggled against the Rams. They pretty much got manhandled against the 49ers, but the Rams, I think they're a team that's being constantly underestimated. And the 49ers, of course, they are the 49ers. And I don't think the Titans have anyone on their defense that can match up with Megatron one-on-one downfield. Not to mention Michaela Shaw coming back. He is a big physical running back who, if he gets significant time, he could make an impact. Not sure how much he'll do this week. Either way, though, at this point in time, I kind of have to go with the Lions. And the Vikings, though, they could prove me wrong if Chris Johnson gets back to form. But they need him to be playing top-notch for them to have any hope at all.